My name is Mia Yoshitani. I'm the Executive Director at Asian Pacific Environmental Network. So our organization's been organizing Asian immigrant and refugee communities around the intersection of racism, of poverty, and pollution for over 25 years, building healthy communities where people can stay and thrive in the Bay Area. So right here in this place on September 8th, 1 month from today, together with thousands of people from across California, from around the world, we'll march from this spot for climate, jobs, and justice. We're going to gather here at Embarcadero at 10 a.m. Saturday, September 8th. At 11 a.m. we'll be marching southwest on Market to Civic Center Plaza, where there will be the largest street mural of all time, and that will commence at that point. And you can see a demonstration of some of the amazing community-driven artwork that we'll be doing to create that giant mural. There will be dozens of contingents involved, including Indigenous people, environmental justice communities, labor, faith, youth, women, people campaigning for Governor Brown to end fossil fuel production in California, for people promoting clean energy. There will be people from all over the state covering all kinds of interests, because this will be the largest climate march the West Coast has ever seen. There will be there are actually already over 180 local, national, and global organizations endorsing this march. And this march will kick off Solidarity to Solutions, a week of actions where communities on the front lines of fighting climate change will show our current leaders what real community-led solutions to climate change actually looks like. We are marching because we're at a crossroads. With the crisis, even in this area around housing, pollution, climate change, I mean, half the state is literally burning down right now. These are the impacts of the extractive economy based only on profit and pollution. The scale and the intensity of this ecological crisis requires that we restore our relationships to one another with the natural systems of air, water, and land that actually support life on Earth. It also requires us to build power across our communities for the climate leadership our families, our children, our grandchildren really need from us in this moment. So for our first speaker, one of these leaders is Desiree Harp from Indian People Organizing for Change. Desiree is a member of the Mishwal Wapo tribe from the Alexander Valley, and she's going to be our first speaker. Thank you.
It is an honor here to be on Ohlone land right now, and I stand in solidarity with the Muwekma people, and as California Indigenous people, we understand what is happening during these times. All of these changes are happening as a direct result of climate change. And the fires that are happening in Northern and Southern California, the depletion and extinction of our salmon runs, the heating of our waterways, and the collapse of our aquifers are a direct result because we have gotten away from the original teachings. California Indigenous ecological knowledge is just as important today, if not more important, for directing the future of California. And this is not just for us, but for all the people that are living in our territory today. The fires, for example, are an example of this. We understood how to coexist with the fires. We actually had controlled wildfires to make it so that way there wouldn't be so much overgrown brush, and that way when the wildfires did come, they wouldn't have so much fuel. We also understood not to build our living structures in these areas where the fires were going to go. And this is knowledge that is being lost, and people think that fires are bad, but fires are not bad because they actually germinate the seeds, and they replenish the soil, and they allow our native species to continue to exist, because many of our native species are fire resilient. And this is a problem because we think that erasing indigenous cultures, we think that erasing indigenous species is the answers. Cutting down our trees is not the answers to getting rid of these wildfires. In the same way that putting up dams is not going to help us with our water problem, because when you allow Mother Earth to do what she has always done, then you can have true sustainability. We understood how to follow leadership from the people who are being directly affected by all of the changes that are happening with our earth. And Jerry Brown is not taking these things into consideration. He is allowing 17% increase in offshore drilling, and also, he is allowing the fracking to continue and to increase. The fracking industries are being allowed to inject their toxic waste into aquifers that were set aside for human consumption. He continues to be funded by people who want fossil fuel dependency, when we need to create a just transition to be able to get off of fossil fuel. And so what we are asking for is, we are asking for this march to happen so that way we can hear the voices of the people who are being directly affected by climate change, and we are asking for the people to continue to listen to the knowledge that we have as indigenous people of this land. Thank you.
Thank you, Desiree. So our next speaker is Raquel Guevara-Bolanos from the North Bay Organizing Project. Raquel has been organizing in the Sonoma County communities that have been directly impacted by the wildfires. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank you. Last October, I woke up one morning to a cloudy sky, a red sun, and the smell of smoke. The fires had burned down several parts of Sonoma County. I was fortunate enough to have a home to return to, but others had lost their homes in the fires. I spent 2 weeks living with a feeling of uncertainty, not knowing what would come of this. And this is a lot of what climate change is. We are living in a time not knowing that the effects of climate change will be drastic, but unsure of what everyday life will look like for us. The future is going to bring many changes, and if we are going to be successful in our attempts to address the issue of climate change, we must aim to include all of the groups of people who are impacted. Only by recognizing the different ways groups are impacted can we ensure that our work is truly intersectional and will be sustainable enough for the future. We must also recognize the importance of building community with each other, because we are stronger together. We must work together to invest our time in local government and local solutions. This is all that we are trying to incorporate in our work at the North Bay Organizing Project. A smaller group within NBOP, known as the Environmental Justice Task Force, is working to bring an initiative to Sonoma County that would change the way in which we interact with the environment. It aims to address the different ways in which the environment is being impacted. For example, over the years, 60,000 acres of land have been converted into vineyards. This alone has 3 impacts on the environment. Habitat loss. In order to make room for these industries, forests have been cleared. Pollution. The runoff from these wineries continues to poison the waterways and watershed. And people. Farm workers are still being exposed to toxic chemicals known as pesticides. By advocating for local policies such as the rights of nature, we are addressing local issues which are intricately connected to global issues. And this is what brings us here today, to talk about the climate march that will build a momentum that will carry out in the work that we do in our communities. By working together, we will be building the solidarity that is needed to build a sustainable movement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raquel. So really, unfortunately, the wildfires that we're seeing right now are just the most recent symptom of a totally dysfunctional economy. This week also marks the 6-year anniversary of the Chevron refinery fire. How many of you remember that explosion? Yeah. So The Richmond refinery is one of the biggest polluters in the state, one of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases in the state, and they also have been one of the biggest polluters to the fence line communities who are the neighbors living right next door to that refinery and have been poisoning generations of families next to the refinery for over 100 years. So when the refinery exploded in 2012, sent a toxic plume of smoke over the entire Bay Area, sending over 15,000 people to area hospitals. And many of these people are still facing long-term health impacts like asthma, like cancer, and other respiratory illnesses. We think of the Bay Area as such an environmental sustainable community, and yet the root causes of climate change have been endemic in our communities for over a century. Pollution from dirty oil and gas doesn't just impact our neighborhoods in Richmond, it threatens every neighborhood by destabilizing our climate, intensifying extreme weather like the droughts, the floods, the hurricanes, the typhoons that we're seeing all over the world. It's forcing entire communities of people to migrate from their homes. Just think of the tens of thousands of Puerto Ricans who are still displaced from their homes right now. At APEN, we've been organizing in Richmond for over 25 years to stop big polluters like Chevron from wreaking havoc on our health and our climate. And we've learned that the greatest strength is our relationship to each other. And we've learned that change has to come from the root of the problem, from the people who have been most impacted by the problem. And that's what we're marching for around the world and on September 8th. Around the country, around the world, people are building powerful movements to transform their communities. We're leading a just transition away from an extractive economy into a healthy, life-affirming economy that benefits everyone. This is what real climate leadership looks like.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like our next speaker, Reverend Dr. Ambrose Carroll, senior pastor at the church by the side of the road in Berkeley and founder of Green the Church. Thank you, Reverend.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Ambrose Carroll, Sr., and I too rise for climate, jobs, and justice. Today we are facing challenging times across this country when it comes to climate change. Extreme weather is having an impact on everyone, everywhere throughout our nation. Flames of fire are burning the state of California. Record temperatures are creating heat waves of harm from Texas to Louisiana to Florida. Rivers are overflowing and flooding small towns and cities. And the Trump administration is denying climate change and tearing down successful and achievable climate and air pollution protections, endangering everyone, particularly the least of these, our most vulnerable, our elderly, our low-income households, and our children. When it comes to air pollution and climate change, low-income communities, communities of color, and other marginalized groups bear a disproportionate burden. Ignoring these truths and spurning our obligation to protect the most vulnerable among us is morally wrong. For example, Black children are 4.5 times more likely to be hospitalized for asthma and 10 times more likely to die from asthma than white children. My 10-year-old son, Ambrose Jr., he's playing football this season in the Snoop Dogg League with a team sponsored by Marshawn Lynch of the Oakland Raiders. The team is called the Bay Area Seminoles. We live in West Oakland, which is the transportation hub of the region that leads to and from San Francisco, where our air quality is impacted by pollutants stemming from factories, Bay Area rapid transit, ships, trucks, trains, planes, and automobiles. Ambrose Jr. struggles with asthma, and so we monitor his albuterol intake, and we watch his play closely. We pray that he and other little black boys grow out of the condition, and we will march on September 8th for the support of the nation to uphold legislation that helps alleviate his discomfort. We will rise on that day because all sentient beings deserve the right to breathe, and because black life does matter. Even EPA scientists recognize the health impact of black lives. Their recent study found that when it comes to particulate air pollution, which is linked to premature death in people with heart or lung disease, irregular heartbeats, and decreasing lung function, the health burden on African Americans is 54% higher than the health burden on the American population overall. Wow. Although it was not mentioned last week, when a group of black pastors went to the White House to take pictures with the president, I'll say it plainly today as a black pastor that by dismantling protections like the Clean Car Standard, the Trump administration is breaking faith with the faith community. As the founder of the Green the Church and the Vice President of California State Baptist Convention, and as a member of the Steering Committee of California Interfaith Power and Light, I join with all here today and other members of the faith community in righteously fighting for the health and well-being of all communities and in standing up against any reckless rollbacks that harm the lives of families and future generations. Malt B.D. Babcock was right. We are not here to play, to dream, to drift. We have hard work to do and loads to lift. Shun not the struggle, for I tell you the struggle is the gift. Be strong, be strong, be strong. It matters not how deep entrenched the wrong, how hard the battle goes, the day, how long. Faint not, fight on, for tomorrow comes the song. Be strong, be strong, be strong. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend Ambrose. As you can see, our communities who have been most impacted by this crisis all along, we have the solutions. Right here in San Francisco, young people have been learning to cultivate ancestral foods and heal the earth as an example of how we have been incorporating these solutions for centuries. Alondra Aragon, youth member of Poder, people organizing to demand environmental and economic rights, is an apprentice at Poder's Hummingbird Farm, and is a member of Poder, has been a youth member of Poder. She's a mother, she's an organizer, she's a fighter from the Excelsior District, and she's our next speaker.
Hey, well, my name is Alondra, this is my son Tonito, and we're here to just say that real climate leaders must be rooted in community solutions. As a mother, it is my responsibility and my duty to provide a healthy life for myself. The system and these so-called leaders aren't providing it. Therefore, the climate crisis contributes to not just pollution, but economic inequality, violence on our people, and forced migrations from homelands and homes. The climate movement must step for the migrant and working families who are first and worst hit. They also have less resources to adapt to. As in Urban Campesinex at Hummingbird Farm, we are cultivating space for healing and reconnections to be made. So our communities under attack and our plant and animal relatives have space to thrive in. It is our duty to relearn our ancestral ways of taking care of the land so it can take care of us. By fighting for climate justice, we are restoring the balance so we can grow our own food, be our own healers, doctors, and leaders. It is time to rise and make that just transition from extractive economies to local living economies. If we don't rise now, then when will we? We will be our ancestors one day. What world do we want to leave behind for the 7 generations to come? I'm rising for climate jobs, and justice September 8th. Will you? Yeah. Following the Rise Mobilization Mobilization, we invite you to the It Takes Root Week of Action starting September 9th, including Solutions to Solidarity Summit September 11th at La Raza Park. There we will be sharing people power solutions like Hummingbird Farm, cooperative stewardships of public lands, and that cool the planet, fear the people, and reconnect the community that will allow the healing to begin. So let's rise, mi gente. Woo!
So thank you, Alondra. Our final speaker, before we open it up to questions, is Kim Tavaglione, who is the political director of the National Union of Healthcare Workers and is a member of the San Francisco Labor Council. Labor Council is comprised of over 150 local unions repping 100,000 workers in San Francisco. And we know that she understands that the climate crisis is making life more difficult for everyone, including working people, and that the transition to community-owned renewable energy needs to be one that creates good union jobs that allows all people to support their families and their communities with the work that we can create out of solving this crisis.
Good morning. We know labor is on the front lines of the current wildfires in California. Labor is on the front lines of this crisis, the environmental crisis. Labor is on every front. We have firefighters on the front lines. We have nurses and healthcare workers in the hospitals taking care of the injured. We have social workers out there caring for people who are traumatized by these fires. We have people transporting all the transit. We have people building infrastructure all over California. Labor is on the front lines of this battle. We know the path to creating a better future is about renewable energy. This is what we are focused on. Labor is rising. Labor is rising to lead this fight with our allies. We want to be on the front lines. We know we cannot continue in this current path. It is destroying our homes. It is destroying our neighborhoods. We know that there is a better way, and we intend to lead on that way in renewable energy and making sure that we leave no communities behind. We leave no workers behind. We know we can do this. Right now, San Francisco is also facing a crisis. The air that we're currently breathing is expected to get dangerously bad. We also know that climate change is also forcing us to have discussions about building a seawall to protect this very property that we're standing on from becoming underwater. We know that the crisis is here and it's happening, and we intend to lead the way. The Alameda Labor Council, the San Francisco Labor Council is rising. We are rising with our environmental allies to stand with them and lead the way to a brighter future for our families, all of them, our children and future generation of labor families. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kim. So we want to bring back Alondra for a final chant to close us out. All right.
Switch right.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm back, y'all. What's poppin'? So I'm gonna do a chant, and I'm asking if you guys can participate and, really just be present in our energy and just like vocalize that, with the chant. So I hope you guys know this one, and it goes along with the rising. We gotta rise, my people. So rise up, rise up, rise up. Rise up, 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 rise up. And then the second part is rise up, my people, rise up. So, rise up. All right. So we're gonna do it together. Don't repeat after me. Let's just do it together. All ready? Rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up, my people, rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. Rise up, my people, rise up. Rise up, rise up, rise up. Rise up, my people, rise up. Rise up, rise up, rise up. Rise up, my people, rise up. Rise up. Thank you.
speakers today. Thank you very much. Thank you for rising up for climate, jobs, and justice, which we are doing today and every day. This crisis is not a technical crisis. This is a political crisis. This is a values crisis. And that's why people are coming together across communities with the solutions that we need to solve the crisis, not what our political leaders are currently offering us. So thank you for rising with us on September 8th. We will see you in the streets. Whose planet? Our planet! Thank you. So we are actually open for questions. If any of the media folks want to ask any of the speakers questions, this is actually a press conference, so we can do that. And if there's not, if you don't have questions, we have one? No. Okay. So we also want you to know we have speaker availability for folks who want one-on-ones with any of our speakers directly after the press conference, okay? Thank you, everyone. Woo!